Welcome to Roadcase, the podcast that explores the live music experience. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Josh Rosenberg, and I'll be taking you on a journey through in-depth interviews with performers and key people in the industry to explore the magic of live music, how it can be totally transformative for both fans and performers, and we'll look at how they take it all out on the road. It's going to be a great ride, so here we go. Welcome to Roadcase. Thanks everyone for joining me. I'm Josh Rosenberg. Really happy to have you here. Really psyched for this episode. We got plenty of great episodes coming up too in the weeks and months to come. So I'm really glad you're here. Again, I want to encourage everyone to contact us at Roadcase, get involved, let me know your thoughts, comments, questions, suggestions for guests. You can email me at info@roadcasepod.com. Or you can reach us through the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're at Roadcase Pod. And if you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/roadcasepod. I'm really happy to introduce today Elijah Wolf. Elijah lives in Brooklyn, has a great new album out called Brighter Lighting. On that album, it's kind of an all-star lineup of Nels Cline from Wilco, does some amazing guitar work. He's got Josh Yeager, who plays drums also for Angel Olsen, Sam Cohen, who produces Kevin Morby, among other people, and he's got Fote, who's a phenomenal multi-instrumentalist and happens to be a childhood friend of Elijah. Elijah grew up in the Catskills. One of his first musical experiences was opening for Levon Helm at Levon Helm's barn in upstate New York, near where Elijah grew up. So we'll hear a little bit about that. It's really an interesting experience. Elijah was also as a youngster, he opened for the Gypsy Kings on part of their North American tour several years ago. And then they liked him so much, they invited him back to Paris to open for them at the Olympia Theater there. And then Elijah got to hang out with them in their house in the south of France. So we got some exciting stories. Of course, this was the timing of this interview. It was pre-election just a couple months ago, so bear that in mind. We talk a little bit about the upcoming election, so just to stem any potential confusion. But Elijah loves to perform. Like a lot of artists today, most of artists misses being in front of fans, but has found ways to get in front of their fans. He's been super involved with this latest album and with its release up in February. So he's looking forward to that. Anyway, I know you'll really enjoy this interview. I'm really happy to have Elijah here. Thank you to all of you for tuning into Roadcase. And so I'd like to introduce you, Elijah Wolf. And here we go. Hi, Elijah. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks.
Yeah. Good. I just wanted to, you've got a new album out, which is amazing. Pre-congratulations for that. I guess it's coming out February
26th.
Officially, yeah. I've given it a listen, and it's really great. You got some, like with Nels Cline and some great guests on there, and it's kind of like a superstar, supercharged supergroup lineup, which I'm really excited to hear about. So we'll talk about that a little bit.
Cool.
And just super excited to have you here. So just to kind of get us kicked off, I was just like, what is your sort of path like that got you to this point that you are now? I mean, you're 25, is that correct?
27, close.
27. All right, so I was close. I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone told me you did that tour with Gypsy Kings in 2015, and now I thought it was like 5 years ago. Anyway, and you were like 21. Or okay. Anyway, whatever.
I was really
Close
young
enough.
for the Gypsy Kings tour. Yeah, I was really young during that tour.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because I think that's really cool. So, but kind of what was your path to get to the point where you are now in Brooklyn, having grown up in Catskills, playing music? Did you grow up on a farm or kind of in a more of a rural area? And how much was music a part of your life early on? And when did that kind of start being a a real thing for you? What was that progression like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty natural because, as you could imagine, growing up near Woodstock, everyone plays guitar or
Hmm.
drums or something.
Yeah.
Uh, my parents were super music friendly. I mean, neither of them were musicians per se,
Hmm.
but they would bring me to shows growing up and just kind of always had instruments around the house.
So your
Um,
parents old, and so you grew up in Woodstock, New York.
well, I grew up in Phoenicia, New York, but it's, up there, it's like a town is 20 minutes away and that's your neighboring town.
Oh, okay. Phoenicia.
Hmm.
All right, but that's kinda in the general area of Woodstock, but,
Hmm.
your folks, so were they old enough to have been there in, like, '69 somehow, or no? They're like
No, they were too young for it, but, we have tons and
no, there's certainly the influence of that around there, right?
yeah, no, totally, totally. I mean, they have a lot of friends who were actually there, and we have family friends who talk about it, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It's definitely there, and also too, I like in high school I worked for Levon Helm and got to know him really
Oh, no
well.
kidding. Wow.
Yeah, so that was a really cool experience, and just kind of being around all of those legends. My high school band got to open up for Levon, and that was a really big experience for
No
us.
kidding, man. That's really amazing. So how did you get introduced to him, or what was that like? Like, how'd that go down? And how old were you?
Yeah, how did it go down? I was young. I was very young. I think it was my one of my really close friends in high school. Her uncle, who's now the drummer of Hot Tuna, who's a good friend now.
Wow.
He was the front of house there at the Levon Helm barn. And she just put in a word in for me. I was young and eager and excited, and I went and sort of got to know everyone really well, which was very cool.
Mhm.
My freshman year in college, I still worked the Saturday uh, ramble, so I would come up every weekend, drive my car up, and
What's the Saturday
it was fun.
ramble?
Every Saturday they had a ramble, they called it, which was essentially a show. Every Saturday, Levon would play. He had his band. It was in his barn attached to his house, and they would have a really cool special guest always. It's very cool, like the experience is. I remember. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on this podcast, but I
You
remember.
can say anything and everything, and then
Okay, cool, cool. I remember as a high schooler smoking a joint with uh, Patrick Carlin, George Carlin's brother, and yeah, just he was cracking me up.
I
The shit he
bet.
was saying was hilarious. Being in a high schooler, I was just like, "This is fucking crazy."
Wow. And so you met him at the barn. He was like, so Levon would have like rotating just people that were in the business, entertainment business, just buddies and kind of
Yeah.
cool people. And that, how did that influence you? I mean, that must have been amazing. But I was wondering how that influenced you and how you met Levon initially.
Yeah, I mean, I actually met him the night that we opened for him, which I think happened because I don't know, we were just a local band and people would try to throw us a bone as like the young, eager local band.
Right, right.
So someone did that for us, I forget who, and I remember, Levon meeting him backstage and being so sweet to us. He was the nicest guy ever.
Yeah, that's what I
And
hear.
then yeah, and he invited us all up to the studio, just some time to check it out. I think he saw that we were young, eager kids,
Right.
wanted to show us his studio. It took a while. It took a couple of years until that actually happened, but with my friend whose uncle was there, through all of the connections, I finally made it over and got to know him. It was very cool. He gave me a lot of really cool advice growing up, and
Yeah. What was a cool
you
piece
know,
of advice that he gave you?
I mean, he took a lot of it was really crazy and very inappropriate. But, he told me one thing that he always told me was, "Oh, stay focused." That, essentially just stay focused. Don't give up on music. Um, Something that, as things happen, if things do happen, as things progress, a lot of stuff will get in the way. But just stay focused and don't let the business kill you, essentially. So that was something that stuck with me.
Did that have an impact on you, or how did that affect you going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I still think about whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed with everything. I just think of that piece of advice, and I remember, the reason why I'm here and 27 and music is my world is because I write songs. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
and I'm passionate about it and I care about it. So, I just try to remember that when the business side overwhelms me, which it does frequently, especially now
Mhm.
as things are getting busier.
Yeah, for sure,
Uh,
understandably.
yeah, I just try to remember that and try to think it's all just because I like to write music and I like to write songs. And yeah, I don't know. Especially now on this record because it's a big collaboration. There's a lot of collaborators. It's a big band kind of vibe. So, I'm trying to think that's really at the end of the day why I'm doing it and why I'm excited for this record and why I'm excited for the future of everything I get to create from now on is because I love to create and I love to create with other people. So I think that all stems from his advice.
You love to create with other people. Your prior album, On Mountain Laurel Road,
Hmm.
that was more of a solo effort. Did you always kinda have in your mind, or were you collaborating with other people to get to that point? Because you just talked about how much you like to collaborate, and is that sort of a logical progression in your mind to get to the point where you are now?
Totally. I mean, I made that record sort of at a necessity. It was a very personal time in my life. A lot of changes.
The Laurel
Um,
Road album.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, a lot of losses on many different levels.
Mhm.
Sort of growing through a lot. And I just didn't have the budget to make a record. I didn't have the
Right,
people to
right, right, right,
hire.
right.
So it was sort of and I'm thankful for it because it was a very personal experience. It was like I sat in my Brooklyn apartment with this microphone.
The one you're holding in your hand right now?
Yeah, yeah,
The one you don't
and,
have a mic stand for?
yeah, somehow over the years, I lost the mic stand, I
I'm
lost the
Yeah, I
pop
mentioned
filter.
it'd be a good idea to have a good mic for this interview, but I forgot to talk to you about the mic stand, man.
It usually goes hand in hand
That was
somehow.
my assumption, but next time we'll get you one. I'll send you one.
Please do.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so you're here in Brooklyn and you created this album, and this has been kinda where obviously, you're where you wanna be right now. I was interested in how the progression, but you had a sort of feeling of being together with other artists, and you've been able to achieve that on the latest one.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what I wanted. I've wanted it for a long time. When I wrote the songs for this record, I went into it with the idea that I would not make it alone. I would make it with a producer, which I had never really done before. I've
Mhm.
worked, with producers on small projects here and there, but I had never actually sat with someone and, 50-50 made a full record.
Right,
So meeting
right.
Sam Cohen was a very big thing for me.
Mhm.
He helped totally rework a lot of it too before we even went into the studio. And then the musicians that we handpicked to play, I'm so thankful they all said yes. They're all dear friends of mine, and they are just the best collaborators. They make their own music and play with other artists I love and admire. So yeah,
And so Sam Cohen produced this album, and he also has worked with Kevin Morby. How did you meet him?
I met him through my buddy Justin Krim, who was managing me at the time.
Mhm.
He actually had the idea. We were looking for producers, and he is friends with Sam's manager, and they had been talking, and it kind of became a conversation that I was looking for a producer. He sent over the music, and Sam immediately came back with, "Let's meet up." And so I went over to his studio. We had coffee, and we just totally hit it off. And at the end of our hang, he turned to me and said, "Let's do it.
Oh,
Let's
cool.
make the record."
Um, Going back to Catskills and your friend Fote that you knew him from when you were a kid,
Hmm.
growing up in he's a high school friend and, like, neighborhood friend or something like that?
Totally, yeah.
How
More than more than that, I would say.
more than
We have been best friends for such a long time. We played in almost every high school band together. We
Oh,
went
no
to
kidding.
college together.
Oh, no
I mean,
kidding. Where'd you go?
it was on we went to, SUNY Purchase. There's a
Oh,
music
nice.
conservatory there.
Oh, okay.
We both went and studied studio composition.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so we've been dear friends for a very long time.
Right, right. When did you come to New York, and why did you I mean, obviously, why? I mean, we can make assumptions. Why did you personally come down to the city and set down roots in Brooklyn? Just more, and how did that kind of affect your songwriting and your musical direction?
Yeah, I mean, I decided just because I wasn't ready to go back upstate yet. Um, and I had some friends living down here, and just wanted to come experience it. My sister lived here too. I
Hmm.
have family here. I just wanted to experience it. And it definitely changed my music a lot from especially what I was making in college. Meeting a ton of different people who made a ton of different music.
Hmm.
Um, my buddy Josh, he is an agent, so he was always at shows, and I would go out to shows with him, and I'd see so many different types of music all the time. So that really inspired me to want to try different stuff. So for the first few years living in New York, I made every type of genre you can think of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just sort of trying to find my place and trying to figure it out. A lot of it fell on its face, but you know,
Well,
I yeah, I wanted to figure it out and see what genre. It's funny that I came back to this like folk rock world, but
yeah,
sometimes
yeah. Do you see yourself as a folk artist?
uh I have problems with that. I don't because I'm I take offense to what folk has become over
Hmm.
the years.
I mean, what do you think it's become over the years?
Well, yeah, that's hard to say. I There's a lot of really, really great folk records out. I would consider the new Fleet Foxes record to be a folk record.
Yep.
That's awesome. The new Kevin Morby record, which came out today,
Yeah,
I would consider
Sundowner.
that. Yeah, that record is awesome. So there's a lot of really, really great artists who use the folk instrumentation
Mhm.
and are clearly inspired by very cool folk artists from the past. But then, unfortunately, I think the genre gets sort of blurred by this like Lumineers, Mumford and Sons genre, which is not folk in my eyes at all.
Yeah, yeah, a little more poppy, I'd have to say.
Yeah, nothing against them. They're very cool people. Um, they're doing their thing. That's very cool. But yeah, I don't know. As far as the conversation goes with folk music, I don't know. I have issues with
Well,
that.
I can see even when you're talking about this, you're kinda laying down a spectrum of to the right side of the spectrum, and then you're kinda moving or to the right. You're sort of moving to the left side of the spectrum with Kevin Morby, Fleet Foxes, other bands that kind of fit into the what would be more progressive, but guitar and vocal based, with
Hmm.
kind of the more acousticy, quote unquote vibe. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, not trying to put you in a I'm not putting you in any kind of pigeonhole or anything like that. I
No,
was
no,
just kind of
totally.
wondering where kind of what your thoughts are and where you stand on it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in LA with the new sort of folk new
Yeah,
Laurel
I love
Canyon
it.
sound. Dawes
Hmm.
was in that for a while and they were kind of getting a little more different, but I do think their roots are kind of folk roots and not in a bad way,
Totally.
not in a bad way at all.
I agree. I think it's super cool. I think it's super cool what's going on.
Yeah, and like what Kevin's doing, Kevin Morby's doing is some great stuff, and also with Waxahachie too. I mean, that's a great direction, and your direction too. And I think this album kind of fits into that area of sort of alt folk, if you will. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, totally.
What do you think?
I would take it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
with
yeah.
it. I mean, definitely working on this record, I will say, has made me much more comfortable in this genre. It's made
Hmm.
me I think collaborating with people who have been in this world and have made a name for themselves in this world for so long and seeing it and getting to experience it on a real level has made me feel more confident being
Seeing
a
and
quote
exper
folk artist.
Yeah, yeah, and seeing and experiencing it. What is that it that you're
It
mentioning?
I think it's getting into a room with these players who have worked on some of my favorite records
Yeah.
and getting to experience the magic of creating with them.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we didn't even mention Wilco or Angel Olsen, and those are Nels Klein, obviously. He plays on your album, and I think that's kind of spectacular. And he really like such a virtuoso, and is a really a lot of standout, amazing performances on the album.
Yeah,
And
thanks, man. He crushed it.
yeah, Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, he kills it. Josh Yeager, and he drums with Angel Olsen, who also kind of fits into that new category, I think, as well.
Mhm.
That kind of vibe. So, and how did you meet him, and how'd that come about?
I met him a while ago. We actually played, we had a mutual friend, Casey, who, got for his solo music, got a band together around that, and he asked both of us, and we just hit it off immediately. I think we liked creating with each other, and then we put it off for a bit. We didn't work with each other, and then we came back to it, and it was really cool too because the records he was working on around the same time were mine and the new Fleet Foxes record. So I thought that
Oh,
was
cool.
very cool.
Oh, he's on the new Fleet Foxes album?
He is, yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Um, well, I was sort of curious, like Nels plays such a big part in, like for me, because I'm a Wilco fan. I mean, his playing is so distinctive. Um,
Hmm.
will you tour with him at all? Was that part of a conversation? Do you have an expectation that he might be able to play sometime on the road with you? And
I mean, that would
what's
be
that kind of look
awesome.
like? Did you have
Yeah,
a conversation with him at all? And
yeah, I have, but I don't wanna comment on it because I don't I don't know, I don't know. I don't want to, jinx anything or I have had the conversation with him,
right.
and
So
I hope something works out live.
you had a conversation with him, "Hey, come on and play some of these great songs with me," and that would be killer.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a busy guy.
Yeah, that was my thinking, like, wow,
Yeah, I think that, like, if the scheduling worked out and we played, like, a record release here in New York, I think he would be I don't know, I don't wanna speak for him in case he hears this.
well, I hope he's listening to my podcast, but yeah, no, you don't put words in somebody else's mouth, but obviously
Yeah.
it's fair to say you had the conversation with him and it came up. But kinda separately from that, um, as you were creating this, did it come to mind that maybe I won't play these songs like they are on the album? And does that matter to you? Like, we like to talk about we'll get into that a little bit in live music and what performing
Yeah,
means to you and how this album in particular, just because it's kind of new on your plate, how that might translate live and what your expectations are, et cetera. Um, but
yeah.
how did that thinking, did that thought that maybe this is a studio album, or when you think that Nels might not join you, what does that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I had a really unique situation, usually touring gets booked like, after you're done recording
Yeah.
or when you're planning for a record release, but I had a couple shows booked, and they were really cool shows too. We were meant to play End of the Road Festival in England, and some really cool stuff over there around that, and I knew that going into the studio. So I
Oh, okay.
kinda had that in my mind of, like, how do I wanna play this live as well?
Mm-hmm.
The last record was unique in that, as we talked about, I made it at a laptop, so I was able to just sort of layer every single thing that I wanted to layer
Mm-hmm.
that I could play, a lot of samples and stuff like that. On this record, it's mostly I mean, at the end of the day, it's mostly Sam, Josh Yeager, and I, in the room. We spent the longest time in the studio together, and we just literally played the songs live. The vocals, the acoustic guitar, the drums, and the bass are all live on the record.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and so therefore, it made it easier to say, like, "Okay, I think we could actually pull this off live." And then, we came back into the studio for Nels, we came back into the studio for a ton of overdubs on, pianos and Rhodes and
Right.
the Bote playing the synthesizers and all of
Yeah.
that, and Sam's backup vocals, all of that stuff,
You're
so
playing synth and keys on it, some tracks as well?
yeah, I mean, I play all of the piano, the real piano.
Uh-huh.
I play a couple small synth lines,
Right.
uh, Wurlitzer on a song.
That's interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Nels made the album. I think your efforts and the production quality and, like, the beautiful feel of the
No,
album itself,
he
but
did make the record.
well, no, come on, come on, come on. Don't no, I mean, just he's so distinctive to me as a Wilco fan, and, I don't think it'll take away from that at all, but it was something take away from your ultimate, live performances whatsoever if he's not playing those pieces. But
Totally.
I think they're great songs, and then they, I mean, clearly they totally stand alone.
No, totally. Thanks, man. And I will say this: the guitarist that I usually work with on live stuff, Stu Pender, he's actually from Chicago. Grew up listening to Wilco.
Hmm.
Um, he is an incredible guitarist, and I've already had the conversation with him of, are you up for playing Nels's guitar parts?
Right.
Which the answer is, fuck yeah. He's like,
Right on.
let's do this. So when
So you
Nels
guys gonna
can't
throw an
make it,
Impossible Germany in there?
yeah, totally. Which, that record was actually mentioned in the studio, which I thought was super cool.
Oh, that's Sky Blue Sky, right? No.
Yeah, Sky
Yeah.
Blue Sky.
What, in what context?
Well, at one point after a crazy solo that Nels did,
And
um,
this was live in the studio with you guys?
mhm,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was actually the solo that made it to Point of Trying,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
main
That
solo.
crazy one that sounds it's like Impossible Germany sort of feel.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Uh, which, that's one of my favorite records of all time. And Sam, being a good producer, because we
Mhm.
had we had gotten like 4 different takes of him just shredding,
Yeah.
and he kind of turns around from his chair and he's like, "Can we get a few takes that aren't so shreddy?"
That's awesome.
I know. I was like,
That
"Fuck yeah, that's crazy."
Can you do
I
that
love,
less good, please?
yeah, yeah,
And
totally.
so
It was hilarious.
what was Nell's response to that?
He goes, "Where have I heard that?"
Yeah, right.
Every record since Sky Blue Sky.
Can I hear that less shreddy? That's such a Jeff Tweedy kinda thing to say too. Can you do
Yeah.
that just not so great, please?
Yeah. Yeah, man. It was awesome. I
That's
loved it.
hilarious.
I was like, "Fuck yeah, that's
That's
so
fucking
cool." And then
hilarious.
he made a few comments. It was so cool working with him in the studio because he he had so much to say, and he always does. That's just how Nels is. He's lived like the craziest life ever, and hearing his stories from everything, not even just Wilco world, but just in general, he has a lot to say. I mean, I remember we were really excited to show him the Buchla synthesizer that Evan Fote brought, and we had it out, and he comes in and he looks at it and goes, "Ah, Buchla," and starts telling us some story about how he knows the Buchla family, and we were
No
like,
kidding.
"Of course, of course."
What's the story on a Buchla synthesizer? Is that I have no idea. Is that like something that's like
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to talk about it because I could fake it, but I don't really know. I only know what Fote has told me about it, which is that it's this really cool instrument. It's a synthesizer from, I don't want to fub the date.
yeah,
It's an old
anyway.
synthesizer.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
no one's fact checking you on this. We're doing fact check on other people in the real world of politics, but
Yeah.
we're not gonna, like, fact check you on this. I just
Okay,
thought maybe it
cool.
was, like, something fucking cool or something like that. It sounds like anyway,
It
yeah,
is super
clearly
cool.
it makes sense that Nels is, like, a vintage instrument expert person for sure.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
If you're listening to this, just Google search a Buchla synthesizer
how
right
do
now.
you
Just look
spell
at it.
Buse? How do you
CHLA.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna do that after this. I'll have my fact checker do it right now, all the people that work for me here.
Yeah.
"Hey, can you,
Turns
um"
out I'm wrong.
So live music, so you got a pretty great introduction to that as a kid playing in Levon's barn as a high schooler, opening
Yeah, it
for
was cool.
Levon's. Man, that's amazing, dude. So, tell me a little bit about, like, prior touring experience. I think the Gypsy Kings is a standout for me. You were young. They took you on tour in the summer in Europe. I mean, what was
It
that
was
like?
crazy. It
I
was
toured
absolutely
Europe and then
crazy.
when I was 18, that was like with a school trip, you know?
Right.
What
It
was
was
that like?
crazy, man. The whole thing was insane. It was literally like days after we graduated from college. Yeah, so I actually we only played one show in Europe. We played Paris.
Mhm.
Um, but then there's more to that, which is a crazy story. But it was my manager at the time, this guy Peter and Drew, really good guys. They also managed the Gypsy Kings, and I think they were just looking for I don't know, younger artists to kind of jump in and have some experience playing like theaters and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
they threw me on the road, and we left like a week after I graduated from college. And I brought I brought my college roommate on the road to play drums. And he's a great engineer. He lives out in LA. He mixed and mastered my last record, the Mountain Laurel record.
Do you want to mention
Um,
his name? Who is he?
Trevor Fideli,
Right on.
yeah, great guy. And then Stu Pender played guitar, and he still plays with me. He's the one from Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we had a blast, man. It was so fun. We played these like really big, incredible places all over the country, and it was a lot of work. I mean, we were driving these insane distances in my Volvo, and it was fun. We would get to these venues, and as you would at 22 or 23, we got wasted all the time,
Yeah, right.
rolled onto stage and would play for thousands of people, and then party in the city and go to the next place the next day.
So
It was a lot of fun.
where were you primarily?
Most on that tour, it was mostly. I mean, it was pretty extensive on like the East Coast and sort of middle part of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, that was a few weeks, I think, on that tour, and then we took some time off, and then we came back at the end of the summer, and did some more dates, and then ended here in the city at the Beacon Theater. And then we went our ways for a bit. We had really hit it off with the Gypsy Kings.
Right.
Um, and we were playing. I brought a soccer ball on tour, and they all play soccer, so we would have these like pickup games before the shows and stuff. Like at Ravinia Festival, we actually got a bunch of interns in on it, and we who were like at the venue, and we
Right. You
kicked
got
the
out,
soccer ball
just
around.
found some grass pitch there and started playing.
Yeah,
That's cool.
exactly. Yeah, and then I got to, after the Beacon Theater show, we took a little bit more time off, and then I flew to Paris, and played at l'Olympia Theater, which is this really beautiful old theater right in
Yeah,
the middle of
yeah.
the city. Yeah, and then after that, we took a train down to Montpellier in the south of France,
Mhm.
and I spent some time in the studio with them,
Wow.
and that was very cool. Nothing really came of it, but
Wow, so they had you back out to Europe. What'd you do in the studio with them?
just knock around some ideas. They really liked a lot of my melodies. I worked with this guy, Miguel, which is one of the sons, who was sort of, had a lot to do with I think the future of the band, and still does.
Mhm.
So we just messed around with some ideas. We were on a farm on a vineyard. So we drank a lot of wine and ate really good food and just played guitar all day. They taught me a lot about the like cool folk music of the area, and showed me how to do some really cool inversions on guitar that they know how to do, and kind of showed me around the city, and it was a very cool
Wow,
experience.
that's really cool. That must have been really amazing. Like, and when you were on the road with them, like, what was that like to play in front of their crowds? Were they receptive? What was the feel? Kinda how that when was that your
Yeah.
kind of first experience in playing in larger kinda auditorium/venues?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. We had been doing a lot of one-off stuff that was pretty big. We had around that time like played a really cool festival, with like the Avett Brothers, and that was like a big
Mhm.
show. So we were kind of getting used to playing like shows like that, but these were like sit down shows in theaters, and it was like mostly older people too. So
Yeah, yeah.
obviously we were kind of like, I hope that these older people who've come to see the Gypsy Kings don't totally scoff at like three kids freshly out of college, like drunkenly rolling onto the stage to play our take on Americana
Like,
music.
how
It's
drunk
like,
were you guys? I guess, is the question. But, no, I saw, like, picked up a clip on YouTube of one song when they brought you out. They brought you out, I think was it during or your set, you brought them out, and they like 3 or 4 3
Mhm.
guys came out, and they played, like, on the drums or something like that. It
Yeah,
was cool. It was
yeah,
cool.
it
That
was
must have been
fun.
great. How did that shape your experience, like, today going forward, and, what was your biggest takeaway from that? And
I don't know. I think I got I just a little bit more comfortable with getting on stage and playing for people.
Mhm.
Um, I think during that tour, I think it's back now that I'm an adult, but for at least a few years, any type of stage fright was just completely wiped away playing those shows. And they mostly all went well. And even if something like if we messed up something or a pedal would give out or something, it would still go well. So I think all of the stage fright was wiped away for a little bit. Um, and it was just a cool experience being a kid and getting to meet so many different people every night.
Right.
It was nice to kind of have that experience. I think it made me a little bit more social.
Mhm.
Um, just kind of made me excited.
Well, when you said it took away from the stage fright for a little bit, you said.
Yeah,
You struggle with that?
I I do and I don't. I mean, it depends. I just as an adult developed more anxieties as I learned about the world. Um,
Yeah, well, that's
yeah,
understandable.
yeah. So I do feel sometimes I struggle with that on stage. I'll have one of those feelings that comes up. That's yourself getting ready to bail from a song or something. But I fight through it every time. So hopefully I'll keep fighting through it.
Yeah, I hope you do because your songs are so beautiful and personal, and I mean, it's amazing. I'm like, this 27-year-old guy, like, and I'm like relating, and he, you have, it's like a maturity beyond your years, really.
Oh, thanks, man.
I could really feel the, um, it's there's kind of like an angst, and it's poignant, but it's still hopeful. Um, what was that? What
Thank you.
did you write all those during the pandemic? Or was
The
it kinda
songs? No,
for
those
the
were
latest
written.
album?
Yeah, those were written. I mean, over the course of the last 2 years.
Uh-huh,
But the record was recorded in last September, actually. So a little over a year ago, Sam and I went into the studio in September to start working on the songs. We did like a pre-production thing,
right.
and then October, we recorded all of the basics. Me, Josh, and Sam. And then I left for a month-long tour with Fote, and then flew back,
And this
and
was like
finished.
what framework? This was like early 2020?
Yeah, no, sorry, this is late 2019.
Okay,
This is last fall.
okay.
So last October, recorded the basics, flew to Texas to start the Fote tour with him,
Mhm.
uh, spent a month out on the road, and then at the end of that, we finished in LA, flew back from LA on a Sunday. By Monday last week of November, I was back in the studio with Sam, just the two of us. Do some vocal stuff, redo some vocals, do some layering, do some backup vocals, and then on Tuesday, first Fote came in and did all of the Buchla synthesizer, and then second half of the day, Nels Klein came in, recorded all the electric guitars,
Mhm.
and then we took a week off, and then I went back and forth throughout December, and then January we mixed the record. So that's the whole timeline of the
Oh,
record.
cool, cool. So you got it all done before the pandemic. So, since we're on that subject, like, and then this whole thing hit and this pandemic hit in early March, what was your thinking in terms of the progression of what this album's gonna look like? And did you have, what were your feelings at the time? Because you had this stuff already recorded, and then all of a sudden there was this big event. Like, what was going through your mind
Mhm.
at the time?
That's a great question. 'Cause obviously, a lot of musicians felt that, especially with new records.
Mhm.
Uh, I was pretty freaked out about it. I mean, obviously, it was sort of the last thing on my mind for the first bit. Immediately, I was just kind of like, what the hell is going on in the world right now?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I tried to think a lot about that. I also didn't know what was happening with the record. There was a lot of confusion over who was putting it out, how we wanted it to come out. It wasn't until like April that AJ came to me and said, I'm going to do this distribution deal with the Orchard, and I'm going to start a label. I want this to be the first record. And we had already been working with each other because he signed me to Rough Trade Publishing,
Mhm.
which he's the head of A&R over there.
Right.
Um, I finally felt some comfort like in April, but that first bit of to answer your question, the first bit of the quarantine, not only was I totally stressed out about the pandemic, but I also had no fucking idea what the hell was gonna happen with my record. I
Right.
started having those thoughts of like, no one's gonna hear the record. This is just gonna
Yeah, no
go.
one knew where anything was going, and it was like the sky is fucking falling, and the sky was
Yeah.
falling, and it can feel like that. But, yeah, I gotta tell you, I thought, when I was listening to these songs, I was like, "Oh, this is a phenomenal pandemic record."
Oh, nice.
That's a fucking good thing. I mean, but, I
Uh-huh.
mean, it's got b mostly because it has so many personal feel to it and so much introspection and, like I said, I think it's mature work, in the
Thank you.
sense of really kind of introspective and thoughtful, and I thought, "Oh, well, this was clearly something you wrote during the pandemic, but you wrote before," and, it really well, it reflects a lot of those common themes of someone who's a kind of a, a deep thinker and can put that into words and then into music. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really great. Um, do you enjoy playing live?
I love it. I absolutely love it, and I really miss it.
Yeah, what's like the thing that you really love about it?
I think connecting with people on a personal level. I mean, when someone hears your record,
Yeah,
it's really nice because, with two singles out, I get messages and it's really sweet to hear what the songs mean to people. And I really appreciate it. It's so awesome. But it means the most when I can go play for those people and then meet them and say hello and kind of get to know them a little bit and have that face to face time, which is so clearly not a thing right now.
yeah, not at all. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about it anyway.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it means a lot to me when I can play for people and feel that energy of sort of the receptiveness of music to you, energy back. I miss that a lot.
How does that affect you really to see the fans and to understand kinda see what their reaction is? Like, do you have, like what stands out in your mind as a time when you were able to meet someone that told you that your music was meaningful to them?
I mean, to be totally honest, it's happened, on the Gypsy Kings tour and at shows, but it's happening the most right now. And unfortunately, it's through this, it's through DMs and.
Yeah, yeah.
So to I really when you ask me that question, it's interesting because it's right now. This is when it's like happening, and it's very
Mhm.
weird that it's happening now because it's not face to face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and getting the messages means a lot. It's very cool. It makes me excited and want to keep going with this.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are kinda other ways have developed of interacting with fans, and a lot of that's gonna go away when you get back on the road, but I think a lot of that'll will stay and be meaningful. I mean, analogously to live shows, I mean, live streaming has become such a thing, and,
Mhm.
I know as a fan of live music and being at shows, I miss being with other fans, interacting with people that love bands that I love and are there at the moment, but now it's sorta like if those bands are doing live streams and there's a chat, you can, like, hang out with people with the same kinda point of view, and then there's also the possibility of interactions with artists through DMs or through just saying, "Hey," on your Instagram, "Oh, love this album," and that's gotta feel good too. Live shows are gonna come back,
Yeah.
right? Obviously. I mean,
Mhm.
what do you think about live streams and kind of has this shifted your mindset a little bit for new opportunities that may or may not have presented themselves during this time for that replicate in a sense, or come close to helping you have that same feeling of fan interaction?
Yeah, I think that I think what people are doing as far as exploring ways to connect with their fans and to play these shows for people even from afar, I think it's very, very cool. I think it's awesome. It took me a while to really understand it actually. At first, I remember AJ was asking me, about doing it around the first single release and through, the summer when we were getting ready. And I was kind of just like, I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. It's lacking in some type of connection.
Mhm.
Uh, but I have totally changed my tune now. I'm actually
Right
doing
on.
one tomorrow.
Oh, let's
And
hear
I
it. What is it tomorrow? Sorry, I didn't know about that.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's just over at actually in AJ's backyard.
Oh,
It's a
right on.
trash casual thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that'll be cool. But
Is that gonna be on, Well, by the time this airs, it'll be too late because that's tomorrow, but I'm
Yeah, that's
curious,
alright.
just tell me personally what it I'll talk to AJ about it.
Yeah, please do.
That sounds
Yeah.
cool. So do you plan on, so you were saying anyway, I wanted to get back to hear your thoughts on a lot of the ways that you've come to have fan interaction in this weird,
Yeah.
fucked up time
Yeah,
in lieu
totally.
of actually real live shows.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know. I just think people are exploring new possibilities. I think out of necessity and sort of just want to play. I mean, for me, more than anything, it was time to try these songs live. I wanted to do it. I wanted to play them live. And also too, I mean, not really changing the subject on the same topic. It interested me watching artists become proactive in the voting season. Obviously, we have an election coming up,
Mhm.
and it inspired me the most to see artists do cool shows that were centered around voting. It was
Right.
cool to see these festivals pop up, and I got asked to do one called I Voted Festival, and that was sort of that. I think got me excited for more. We went and we filmed uh, uh, a show, which was cool. We did it a couple weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
And,
How long is it? How many minutes?
I think it's like 25,
Oh,
30 minutes.
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and it was so cool. I mean, it was only two people watching, AJ being one of them, but and then the other person filming it. But we got to pre-record a show, a full show of mine,
Uh-huh.
which airs with this festival. But it got me really excited, and then I sort of came to my team and I said I really want to do more of this stuff. So we're gonna keep rolling out different voting stuff and live streams, and I think on top of all of that, it just got me excited to connect with my fans a little bit more, and the people who are now, because a lot of these people are coming in for the first time now with these singles, and I want to connect with them, even though I can't
Yeah.
in person. So I want to play these songs for them, and just announcing a couple small things and getting responses from people that say how excited they are. It meant a lot and made me want to do more.
So
So
getting, like, feedback on socials and such?
yeah, totally. Again, I wish that there were a way to talk a little bit more and to connect, but I mean, it's nice to just get it and then to say, okay, cool. Like I'm not just throwing stuff out to the void like I have in the past.
Yeah, well, from the perspective of someone who watches a bunch of live streams and is a fan of music just like you, I mean, there's a level of interaction there. Like, fans will watch you and then comment on socials eventually, or
Oh,
if there's a
cool.
chat, which you can't focus if it's like a live show. But if you're putting up a recording, and it's a recorded performance, you can certainly follow. You could look at the chat. I don't know if you'd want to do that, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you
totally.
do what the best we can do right now. I mean, this is an live music is an interactive medium, so we're doing the best we can, I think.
Hmm.
What are do you have any plans? So I yeah, I you that was a good segue because I wanted to definitely mention that you're doing the November 3rd I Voted Online, although, this podcast is launching after that, but I think
Yeah.
that's a really cool thing anyway, that they're doing this big online festival, which is really kind of cool. What kind of live stream stuff are you doing for the new album, once it's released, or will you do something before
Yeah.
that, or what's kind of your
We d-
program?
we we've been talking about that. We're trying to figure it out. I really want to do um like what Kevin Morby's doing tonight for his record release.
Yeah.
Like he has a special band, a ticketed event at a
Hmm.
special location, mic'd up well. I would love to do that. I would love to get the original studio band. I'd love to get Nels together and Sam, and everyone's kind of in the general. I mean, everyone's in New York, as far as I
Right.
know. So
Yeah.
I think it's possible,
That
depending
would be
on where
really
everyone
cool,
is.
man. I hope you do that.
Yeah, I think that would be cool too. I hope that we can get it together. If not, I'll still do it, but with other great musicians.
Did you, yeah, Kevin Morby last week did Oh My God album, and he just played it in his like living room with a piano and a guitar. It was pretty dope.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I I really wanna watch one of those.
and Katie joined him on one song at the end or something. It was really cool.
That's sick.
Guitars, man, guitars. I saw what was I
Mhm.
was I watching the your performance in the Paste, magazine studio? That Martin, is that that kinda like dreadnought sized one? That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
beautiful guitar, man. I love that sound, and it's just fucking, you see a
Thank you,
lot of
man.
the, like, the smaller sized Martins, but that was like that's a big ass guitar, right? Or am I
Yeah,
wrong?
you know what? It is. It's an HD 28, so it's a big dreadnought. But I actually, I fairly recently, right before we went into the studio, I wanted to change the vibe a little bit. So I actually got a 1964 Gibson B25,
Mhm.
and
Wow.
now that's my thing now. That's it's a little bit smaller, and it's just there's a little bit more soul in it, I think, and I like it. It's less shiny. It's less big. I'm not the biggest person, so it's nice to have, like, a nice sized guitar.
Yeah, well, if you use a huge guitar, it makes you look smaller.
Yeah, totally.
So maybe you
Totally.
wanna go the other direction, I don't know, but it's about
Yeah,
sound, it's not necessarily about image. You're up there with a
yeah.
Gibson. That's pretty fucking cool. So are you into vintage guitars? Because like, this is a 1964 Gibson. That's pretty amazing.
I am, yeah, I spend most of my days actually here in New York. I have a little job working at this really cool did I is my microphone too far away now?
No, 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 I was just looking at something that was over here. Yeah.
Oh,
No, no, you're good.
uh,
You've been all
okay,
good with the
cool.
sound, man. That thing sounds great.
Awesome.
Is your arm
Good,
getting
good.
tired?
It's actually not. It feels somehow comfortable. I
Well,
feel
that's
like
your
I'm
right
playing a
hand,
show or
so you've
something.
got the guitar, you've got the, the strumming kind of strength in that hand.
Yeah, yeah, totally, yeah, yeah, I've been working at this place though, TR Crandall Guitars, for a while, which is like a very fancy vintage guitar shop that's known for their restoration work,
Ah,
and repair work for guitars, and, I've learned so much from those guys, it's amazing,
seriously?
and
Is
it's
that in
all
Brooklyn?
it's in Manhattan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so now I have a general love and interest for vintage guitars.
Yeah, right, and you
So
just get to sit around and play them all day long?
yeah, sometimes if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But, it's cool too because, like, they also make guitars and my electric is one that they built, so that's cool,
Nice,
they've
nice.
they've they've done me well.
I haven't seen your electric because I guess most of the stuff that I saw on YouTube was just acoustic, so
Yeah, I don't really take it out much.
okay. What is it?
It's like a telly body. It's made by Alex, who's one of the owners.
Uh-huh,
Um and it's a telly body with 2 humbuckers and a short scale neck that's pretty fat. It's like a big, like, it's like a Les Paul sized neck on a telly with humbuckers and no
interesting.
pickguard. It's crazy.
I'm trying to imagine that, it sounds kind of Frankenstein-y-ish.
It is in the best way.
I'm trying to imagine, like, humbucker pickups on a telly body, and that's just kinda like cognitive dissonance almost. It's like you're used to seeing the one slick, pickup on a
Mhm.
telly, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's
So
really
how's the
it's fast
switching mechan
sounding.
not to get really into the weeds on this, but how's this, is it the traditional telly switch mechanism, or
It is, but I mostly keep it in the neck position because it's just so, and I only play rhythm guitar, especially if I'm
Yeah,
playing it live. So
yeah.
it's really like m fat sounding. That's the only way I can put it.
Do you f Yes, for sure. Do you find yourself adjusting vocals in a different way or singing in a different way when you're playing electric versus when you're playing acoustic through a mic?
Totally, yeah,
Like, how
definitely.
how does that change the look and feel, like, the feel and the sound of what you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm playing electric guitar, it's probably a song that's a little bit more rockin' than another one, so I'll probably put a lot more into my vocal performance and sing a little louder with more dynamics.
Right.
Uh, Whereas acoustic guitar, it's usually something a little bit more delicate. Although I'm curious to see what we do with this new record because I can't foresee myself. I don't foresee myself playing any electric guitar live on this record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Nels Klein and Sam Cohen played all the electric guitars. I am gonna stay far away from even going near their parts.
Yeah, I guess it can get a little busy, or, yeah, busy on stage, that is, with those
Yeah.
guys.
Totally. Yeah, I'll let whoever is playing electric guitar with me, just keep it that way.
Yeah, for sure. Elijah, this was really cool. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang with me for a little bit and chat about
Oh,
everything you're doing, man.
it was awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, dude. Cool.
Thank
All
you,
right.
man.
Peace. Later.
Have a good one, man.
Okay, there you have it on Roadcase. Elijah Wolf, who joined us from Brooklyn. He's got such an interesting background playing at Levon Helm's barn when he was in high school and meeting all kinds of people and sitting down, getting advice from Levon when he was just a kid. I mean, he's still a kid now, and like he was in high school. That's pretty cool. And the fact that he got to play with the Gypsy Kings when he was really young, and they took him out to Europe, and he got to play in Paris with them, and then hang out in the south of France with them. Elijah just learned early the importance of the live performance, being in front of fans, and how important that fan reaction is. And he's got this new album that's coming out in February, Brighter Lighting. I'm really excited for that to come out, and I'm really excited to hear Elijah play these songs in a live setting, especially the songs that he cut in the studio with Nels Klein. It'll be interesting to see how those are able to be performed on the live stage, and see how those translate. It'll be really, really cool to see. So I want to thank again Elijah for being here. I want to encourage everybody to get involved with Roadcase. I'd love to hear from you. Questions, comments, concerns, even suggestions for guests. You can email me at info@roadcasepod.com. You can follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so on Patreon. We have a Patreon site at patreon.com/roadcasepod. I'd like to thank Elijah again for being here. I'd like to thank Walzer for this phenomenal theme music. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us on this episode of Roadcase. We got a bunch of episodes coming up in the weeks and months to come. So see you on down the road.